I ended up paying my way through college working in campus rec and loved it. My campus recreation director took me to lunch one day and kind of thumped me in the head with a brick, I like to say, and said, hey, you could make this a career. So I switched out of working on my exercise physiology degree, which I did finish, and went into my master's degree in sport management. What has motivated me in this field has changed over time. I think initially when I first entered the field, I was more interested in seeing the physical attributes, the things that we could change on the ground, building facilities, creating programs that impact people. Those were all things that were incredibly important to me and got me all excited, to see that child's eyes light up and to see them smile at their first catch, or the hilarious time that I was officiating little girls' fast pitch softball and ended up getting to see an unassisted triple play. Where else can you do that but in parks and recreation? Over time, though, I found that the bigger impressions and the bigger impacts that I was able to make were really associated with the staff members that I had and the people that I worked with. Being able to develop teams, to create partnerships and grow people as professionals, I think really made me feel like I could have a greater impact on the communities that I served. I don't always see the impact of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis. I think the change that I'm able to make that truly impacts communities is that incremental change. One person, one moment, one beautiful experience. I think those are the things that add up over time to a foundation that strengthens the human as a true professional in parks and recreation, as well as enhances the community members' ability to retain capacities until their older adulthood, or to stay healthy and active and happy. I was changed by the work that I was doing immensely when I was working for the City of Liberty, Missouri. I had this great staff. They'd been an established parks and recreation agency, and when I came in, I was noticing that they were really focused internally on what they were doing and how they were acting and behaving and moving the needle on their community work. But what I noticed is they weren't always listening to the community and engaging the community to understand what the community's needs were. And in one particular example, the senior center was located inside the community center, and the seniors had been asking for quite some time to get a little bit greater amount of handicap parking stalls so that they could have easier access. We were seeing an increasing number of seniors as they were entering the senior center falling right outside the building. And those falls were because they were getting tired as they were trying to walk in. And the staff were pretty adamant that, we meet code, and it's just this morning time when folks are coming in. But when I asked them to think about, okay, what is the customer? Who is our customer? How can this make things better for them? And they went ahead and they striped a few more stalls in that parking lot just to see the faces light up. We did see a reduction in the amount of falls, but then the staff members began to understand that engaging the community was a greater way to understand how to serve the customer better. Having spent a little bit of time in Colorado, it's very clear how parks can impact the lives of our community members. Outdoors, indoors, it doesn't matter. It's those social connections. It's the time in nature. It's the time with self to relax and reflect. All of those things impact both our mental and physical health. And it makes us stronger as humans and able to be resilient in the face of things like COVID when it was here. I know our staff team in Colorado was one of the first community centers to reopen after the closures in 2020. We talked a lot about whether or not we should open, and our staff were quite frankly afraid. But when we realized that there were going to be a couple of smaller private clubs that were fairly expensive that were going to open, we felt like it was our responsibility from a social equity perspective to dig in and strap on our boots and just get in that facility, figure out how to open it in the safest possible way so that everyone, no matter how much they had in their pocket, could still come in and be social, be active, and be healthy. Some of the challenges facing us today are the same challenges that we faced for quite some time. We're always going to be seen as the dessert, right? So Parks and Recreation, if you look at the funding plate that's out there, our elected officials are always going to fund the meat and potatoes first. Those are the backbones of what we need first. And who are the meat and potatoes in government? Generally public safety and public works, right? And so I have always felt that we've been a little bit of the dessert that sits on that extra plate. If there's funding left over, or if we have a few calories left we can expend, we'll go ahead and get that dessert and we'll take care of it. But the truth is, I think that we all know how important Parks and Recreation is to the fabric of the community. And I've always made the case that Parks and Recreation isn't the dessert that comes later. It's actually the vegetable, and it needs to be on the plate. Elected officials have such a challenge when it comes to figuring out exactly what to fund. And when they're looking at the whole plate, it's difficult to say why Parks and Recreation is important when so many folks don't recognize the benefit that we bring to the community. But the truth is that the opportunity to stay social and active allows us to retain capacities into older age that will in the long run help our communities save money. You know, if we are healthier longer and less dependent on chronic disease medications or other types of things, then we are also not dependent on public transportation as much. We might be able to take care of ourselves a little bit longer and not need as many services, social services. When we look at how we can serve to reduce impacts on the environment, we are there with trails, with alternative transportation opportunities. When we look at all of the things that we bring to young people in growing their character and their ability to be effective and incredible citizens when they grow up, all those things can have long-term savings on the back end. You know, that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We're that ounce of prevention. I think the future of our field will depend on what we make of it. I don't know that I have a crystal ball to see exactly what it's going to bring, but I know that everything that we do to be intentional about the way we program and the way we design our parks and the way we develop the staff that come behind us, all of those elements will come together to create what we will become. And I think the more attention we can place on growing staff that understand the foundations of Parks and Recreation, the more attention we can pay to that community engagement, so that the community doesn't just get to pick what goes in there, but they understand the why behind the choosing of the amenities that go in that park. And I think the more intentional we are about our programs, designing them in ways that grow the character of those young people, and then talking about how that is impacting them, I think those are the things that will change the face of what Parks and Recreation is. What I would say to someone who's just getting ready to get into the field, number one, don't ever think twice about it. Go full steam ahead. This is such a rewarding career and such a fabulous place to work. I'd also say make connections as you can. Networks matter, and the more you know outside of your own four walls in your agency, the better you'll be able to serve your community. The more experiences and exposure, the better. Get engaged in the National Association, get engaged in your local state association, get engaged in anything regional, and then dig in and try to understand how you can best serve your community.